Hello, you guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, my name is Hannah, and I teach high school science in the wonderful Sunshine State of Florida. I currently teach ecology, biology, and environmental science to 9th and 10th graders, and I'm going to my third year teaching. Holy cow, that's crazy to think. Quick story before we get into this, I was talking to my mom last night about the temporary certificate and the professional certificate and all those things, which if you're a career changer in Florida, you know basically all that means is you didn't go to college to be a teacher, but you decided you wanted to teach at some point, so you got a temporary certificate, which is good for 3 years. And in that time, you have to meet all these standards, like take some college classes, go through a mentorship program, yada, yada, yada. I remember when I applied for that temporary certificate, I literally thought, probably in 3 years I'll be over teaching, or I'll gotten it out of my system, and here we are, applying for the professional certificate, sticking with it. So apparently something has stuck. But let's go ahead and get right into this. So you might have seen the title of this video is all behavior management stuff for high school. And the reason I'm making this video for you guys is because a few weeks ago, 2 weeks maybe, I posted on my Instagram, which is @blissfulbiologist. Go follow me on there. I posted, what are your first year teacher questions? And I would say the biggest theme was behavior management. And so I answered all the other questions. I'll have those videos linked below. And then I left all the behavior management stuff for this video because behavior management is like a bear of its own and it deserved its own video. So here we are, behavior management, high school. And if you see me looking down, it's at my happy planner. I wrote everything down. Very messy, I know, don't judge, but let's get right into it. So the first thing I have on here is consistency. Now, consistency is key. So however I set up my rules on day one and I carry out for that whole first month, I literally will have until the very last day of school. In my district and at the last district I taught at, I found that February is one of the biggest months for behavioral issues. So a lot of times you hear, oh, you have to be super strict until Christmas and then you can relax a little bit. And I would say that's not accurate just because February is so hard. And so if you kind of take the brakes off on January of your behavior management, I think February will be extra hard for you. But like I said, that's just the 2 districts I worked at. So that could be totally different in other places. But the other thing with being consistent that I wanted to say is be consistent in how you talk to children and how you manage their behavior. So we all love our kids, right? But there's days where some of them just wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Maybe they got in a fight with mom on the car ride to school. But it makes it so some days you're just clashing a little bit. And it's super important in those days to be consistent to how you've kind of adjusted their behavior, should I say, previous times, because you want to show your emotions don't get to you. That's what I'm really trying to say. Is even if a kid is pushing your buttons and you feel the steam building up to come out of your ears, be calm and manage the behavior in the way you said you were going to, and don't let your emotions take over. That's what I really mean when I say consistency is key. Now the next one I have is be honest. High schoolers are phenomenal at reading your energy. If you start lying to them, no matter what it's about, they can tell. I promise you. And so just be honest. If a kid is doing something crazy and they're being totally out of control or totally disruptive, I'll be like, oh, Joanne, would you mind coming to talk to me in the hallway for a second? She comes out there and I just say, Joanne, what's going on? It seemed, instead of being you're doing blah, 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 you say, hey, did something happen this morning? You don't seem like yourself. And be truthful and be honest and try and have this open, honest conversation with them, because it will trigger a better reaction than just yelling at them. Or you can take the being honest in the simplest way. A kid doesn't want to do a worksheet. They're sitting there pouting. They keep pulling out their cell phone, whatever it is. And you can go up to them and be like, hey, you know what? I get it. You don't want to do this worksheet. And maybe you're never going to see this stuff another day of your life. But this class, you do have to do this worksheet. And if you want to graduate high school, you got to pass this class. And so I'll try and set it up really honestly and just kind of engage my students that way. And I found it really, really helps. Now, the next one is know your students and adjust based on personality. So this kind of differs from the consistency thing a little bit, but basically you're gonna have kids of all personality types. You're gonna have the kids who want to please you and want to make you happy, and then you're gonna have the kids who don't care. You're gonna have the kids who respond better to you being very straightforward, And then you're gonna have kids who respond better to more like heart-to-heart talks or whatever it is. So based on your kids' personality, adjust your behavior management. And that's not something you're gonna figure out your day one of school. It's probably something that'll start to come to you the second quarter or even after the first semester. So don't stress that too much, but definitely make sure you're kind of taking your kids' personalities into account when you're thinking about their behavior management plan. If you know a kid is gonna react poorly to you yelling at them, don't yell at them. And if you know a kid, this is the type of kid who needs like the strong reset it is. The next one I wrote is try and figure out why they're acting out attention seeking. Okay, so this is kind of what I said with pulling them out in the hallway. So when a kid's acting out or doing something bad, like throwing pencils, yelling, usually what they want is attention. They're doing an attention seeking behavior. So if you react to them by like screaming and yelling and giving them all your attention, well, they won, they got what they wanted, and they're gonna do that behavior again. What you really need to do is figure out what is the core reason that they're seeking attention and then address it that way. So I had one student 2 years ago, who was horrific with attention seeking behavior. I mean, just like my worst nightmare. Love the kid, but it was bad. And so for them, they really wanted my attention, and the root of it was their home life wasn't so good. And so what I ended up doing was assigning this kid little tasks every day. Be like, oh, hey, could you be in charge of like flipping through the notes when we're doing them on the projector? So basically giving him a task that was important and that helped me, and it made him feel like I was giving him attention, even though it was just a tiny, tiny bit of my attention while I still taught my class. Don't get upset. That's what they want. Ooh, yeah, I said that. Whatever it is, you guys, they want you to yell. They want you to scream. They want you to freak out. Don't do it. No matter how much you want to just yell, trust me, my first year teaching, I had a day where I yelled at my kids. When you do that, you're not doing yourself any favors. So what I would say is, my first year teaching, there was just a horrible day. I mean, I wish I could like have a camera in that room to like show you guys footage, because no one would ever believe me how terrible it was. But I mean, just totally out of control behavior. And the first time it happened, I screamed at them. You know when you like scream so loud your voice like changes? Oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. But that's what I did. And guess what? The behavior has happened again. And the next time it happened, I said, we're all gonna reset. And we turned the lights off and we all just sat there silently for 2 minutes, and that helped. Okay, now the next thing is take a genuine interest. That's true. I mean, the interesting thing is you're gonna have 150, well, if you're a high school teacher, you might have 150 kids. And it's gonna take a while to get to know all of them and the intricacies of their personalities and learn about their hobbies, but do show an interest. If they say, no, I can't, all right, no, I didn't do that homework because I had baseball practice last night. Be like, oh, what position do you play? Turn it around to show that you have interest. If you put interest in them, they are going to put interest in you. Not necessarily your personal life, but they will start to care. If you care, they'll care. And when kids care about you, they're more likely to do their work. Okay, don't reward attention-seeking behaviors. Said that. Like I said, just turn the lights off. Talk with teachers, dean, and principal. This is actually a really good tip. So, at my first school, I had a mentor teacher who was really amazing. She was really great with behavior management. And so it was really nice for her and I to get on the same page. So if you're going into your first year teaching, maybe meet up with your team teachers and say like, hey, how do y'all handle behavior management? And adapt to their plan. And then as the year goes on, you can make adjustments based on what you like and don't like about that plan. But it really helps for you guys to all be on the same page. I also suggest talking to your principal and the dean if you have one. The dean at my school is the person who's like in charge of discipline, like the big discipline. And so this way I was able to build a relationship with them. So when I wrote referrals, they knew like what type of teacher I was and, you know, stuff like that. And I also understood what they consider to be severe things and not so severe things. It just gave me a feel for how the school handled their behavior management. And the principal, they tend to give a little more PC answers if you're at a big school, but definitely talk to the teachers on your team and definitely talk to the dean. Treat all kids equally. Absolutely. You guys, your kids will see that so quick. Even if you have a favorite, you really cannot show it, and try not to show it, because the kids who are realizing that they're not your favorite, they will start to act out more and more and more. And the behavior issues you'll see from your students who seek attention, because they know you're not the favorite, they know they're not getting your most attention, their behaviors will escalate throughout the year and it'll get worse. So be really careful to treat every child equally. Plus it's the law, so just do it, Hallway conversation. I said that twice already. Oh, okay. So here's a random one. If you teach high school, you will have kids crying at some point in your classroom. What I have done with this is if I have a kid crying like quietly, like not attention seeking crying, because then I pull out into the hallway and do the thing like, hey, what happened? But if I have a silent crier, what I'll do is like while I'm teaching the lesson, I'll write on a sticky note. What do I write? I write something short and now I can't remember what I write. But basically the gist of it is you can go to the bathroom for 5 minutes if you need a cool down, or you can go see the guidance counselor. Then that gives them the opportunity to leave my classroom without having to draw attention to themselves by asking. And I find that when you do that, number one, follow up with like your dean or whoever patrols the hallway at your school being like, hey, just let so-and-so out for crying. If they're not back in 5, can you go look for them? Whatever it is. Or you can send them to the guidance counselor and then just shoot your guidance counselor a text, be like, hey, I just let so-and-so out of the room to go calm down. They were crying. And then that kind of puts the ball in their hands. So this way, if the kid were to just roam the hallways for 15 minutes or try and leave campus, you have a record of you let them leave their room for whatever reason. Yeah, and I find that really helps later on. So like, even if that kid wasn't a behavior issue, that kid has now built a level of trust with you, and that helps with your relationship. Hold kids accountable. Absolutely. If a kid does something bad, call them out. I see a huge tendency in teachers who have been at the schools for a long time to just let certain things go. Like, oh, I spend too much energy dealing with this. I don't have the energy to deal with dress code. Or I spend too much energy doing this. I don't have time to enforce my school's cell phone policy. Don't let those things go. If your school has a policy or you have a policy, anytime the kids break it, hold them accountable, because every single time you let one kid slip through, they can get away with it. They can get away with it. And so it just builds and builds and builds and builds, and they'll keep getting away with more and more and more, and you'll become exhausted because all of a sudden your behavior management is out of control. Pick your battles. So this is kind of like, this is weird because it's a little different than holding. I said hold kids accountable, and then I said pick your battles. What you want to do is you want to choose your battles with your attention seekers. That's what I really mean. So days that they're seeking your attention, and you've done everything. You've assigned them a little task. You've given them a small amount of attention. In a positive way, you've given them behavior redirection. Well, guess what? You're not going to keep giving them attention for bad behavior. And eventually you just say, you know what? I'm not going to have this fight with you. You can go sit at the dean's office. Or, you know what? We're not going to have this fight. You're just going to go sit at the principal's office right now. So do pick your battles. If you fight every single fight with the attention seeker, they're going to love that because you're giving them tons of attention. Don't be afraid of the kids. Oh, wait. Yeah, don't be afraid of the kids. No, it doesn't matter if when this kid walks into your room, you are shaking in your boots because you're so afraid of them. Absolutely not. You are the adult. You are the responsible one. You have to show them you are in charge. You have it together. Do not ever be afraid of a child. If you are physically afraid that you will be physically harmed, things to never do is never put yourself in a space with them where another adult isn't around. So like, don't call them into the hallway and then it just be you and that child with the door to your classroom closed. You always want other eyes on you. Another thing never to do is if they walk out of your classroom door and stand against the wall, don't stand right in front of them and block them into that space. Always stand kind of next to them or at an angle so if they get mad, they don't feel like you've trapped them in. Because sometimes when kids get so mad and maybe they have an emotional thing, they blank and they could push you, they could hit you. I've seen it before. So just be careful. Don't be afraid of them, but also be smart. Follow through always. So if you tell a kid you're going to call home, call home. You tell a kid you're going to email home, email home. If you tell all the kids that you call home when they get D's, As soon as they get a D, you need to call home. This is the same thing about don't let anything slip through if you, or like holding the kids accountable. If they realize you don't do like one thing you say you do, they're gonna think you don't do anything that you say that you're gonna do. So just be really careful. Change the seating charts often, 100%. As soon as there's any type of issue, change the seating chart. And you guys, I've had no problem like doing it right then and there. So say we're having a seating, say the kids are just getting louder and louder and they're not listening to any classroom corrections, they're not listening to instructions, I'll say, pause, everyone stop, and I'll move like 10 kids. I'll say, Jody and Matt, switch. John and Jake, switch. And like, I'll do it like 10 different times. And then it gets a little bit better. So it shows that you're not afraid to take control in the moment. You're not afraid to switch things up. And it might be too scary to like say switch to you at first. But then the next day, make sure they have a seating chart when they walk in. Change the seating charts often. Call home and keep records of prior behavior. This is super important. So my first year teaching, I had a class that was filled to the brim with students with behavior management issues. And it's really sad, but it's true. I had one kid in there, it sounds really bad, but he was kind of like the leader, the instigator of it. And I tried every behavior management tactic. I tried calling home, I tried parent-teacher conferences, I tried the principal, I tried the dean, I tried the hallway talk, I tried reasoning, I tried assigning tiny tasks, I tried ignoring, nothing worked. And this kid was so disruptive, so attention seeking, that it was actually hurting the education of all the other kids in my class because this child required so much of my attention. And I don't mean because they had like needs, but they required so much of my attention because of their disruptive behavior that it was hurting their grades. And because I kept a record of every bad behavior, everything this child said, every time I called home, at the end of that semester, I was able to go to my principal and say, look, Joanne in this video, Joanne did this on all these different times. This is how I called mom. This is what mom said. And then I was able to like pull the grade report and I said, look at this class's average versus all my other classes' grade averages. And that class, the grade average was 10% lower than all my other classes. And so that child was moved to a different period and I did not have the same problems again. But you have to keep meticulous records of these behavior issues so your principal can understand that you're doing the best job you can at controlling it. And maybe they'll even look at the list and be like, you know what, have you tried emailing dad? Or maybe have you tried sending them to the dean? Whatever it is, but keep meticulous records. Rachel said, blah, 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 on this date, I called home and this is what mom's response was to it. Keep a record. I do an Excel document and then make 7 sheets because I have 7 periods and then just like write them as we go. Like first block, maybe the kid named John did something wrong. John, blah, blah, blah. He did blah, blah, blah. This is how I handled it. And then you go from there. And this way, if mom comes to a meeting and is like, I was never told any of this, you can literally open the document and say, yes, you were, here you go. It's just really important. As a teacher, it's important, especially with troubled students, to keep meticulous records. I had to give a few quick pieces of advice. I would say number 1, always have a seating chart. I cannot imagine not having a seating chart for high school students. Number 2, when it comes to cell phones, I think the easiest way to handle it is the being honest strategy where you say, look, I know you want to be on this, but if you're on this, you're not focused on the assignment. And if you're not focused on the assignment, well, you're not going to get a very good grade. Or, you know what, if you're going to keep having your cell phone out, I'm just going to have to call mom today. So just that kind of honest approach, but it usually gets them to put it away. During tests and quizzes, one thing you can do is have all of them put their cell phones in their backpacks and then line their backpacks up on the front wall. Or I will I'll collect all the phones in one bin and like they can all charge their phones or something like that during a test and quiz. You definitely don't want them to have it. Attention grabbers are great. So teaching high schoolers, like whatever attention grabber you want when you want their attention. Like if you can hear me, clap your hands. Or like if you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. So whatever like callback attention grabber you want to use, I definitely recommend setting one up early as you can. And as the year goes on, you probably won't need to use it as much, but you will always have it in your back pocket. Another thing that I feel like was honestly one of the best pieces of advice, I got this from another teacher YouTuber. I honestly don't remember who it was, but they basically said, stand at your front door every single day and greet your students when they walk in the door. Good morning, John. Good morning, Tyler. Good morning, Logan. And do that every single day. You're showing your kids you're there for them. You're excited to see them. And honestly, it's exciting. It's exciting to greet all your kids that way. It like starts the class in a really nice way. What else? Call your kids out. If you're teaching high schoolers, these kids know what they're doing. So when they turn in a worksheet where they forgot to do the back, they didn't see there was a back, call them out. Flip it over. Come back, turn around, pick this up, and go finish the back. Always call your high schoolers out. They know what they're doing at this point. What else? What I always do is, so how I run my classes, the kids come in, they do their bell ringer. Well, they also know if they don't start doing their bell ringer right away, I'm not going to move on until everyone's bell ringer is done. So all of a sudden you have Cindy moving extra slow, getting out her iPad, logging into Nearpod. And so what I can do is I can turn around and be like, Alexis, I can turn around and be like, Alexis, Dylan, Jody, great work getting started today on your bell ringer. And then all the other kids around you have heard you reward these kids for doing something right. And all of a sudden, they want a reward too. So I'll always get, wait, Miss Healy, you didn't see my iPad was out. Oh, Miss Healy, you didn't say my name, and I already did my bell ringer. And it gets so other kids gets their rear in gear. What else? Oh, always hold your kids accountable as they're leaving the classroom. So one thing for me, I'm so bad about this, I totally lose track of time during class. So I normally do bell ringer, notes, and then activity, lesson, worksheet, whatever it is. Well, a lot of times I forget that the bell, like the class is ending, and all of a sudden they go, oh my gosh, Miss Healy, it's time to go. And then sure enough, it is time to go. And I'm like, oh, sorry. But what you have to do is like, be like, no one leaves till the room is clean. I know that sounds so silly. Like how many times did we hear that when we were in school? And it being like, oh, they're not letting us leave. You have to do it because it maintains control. So I'm like, who's highlighted on the ground? Pick it up and we're not leaving. Eventually, someone will pick it up, you guys. But you got to be strong with stuff like that. So if you're going to make a claim like that, stick to it. But I mean, honestly, I feel like the biggest thing with behavior management is just showing your kids that you really care about them and showing the kids that you're going to be there. It's like they have a good day, they have a bad day. You're still there, you still care, but you're also not going to tolerate it. But if your school ever does come out with rules, definitely make sure that you're enforcing them. Even if it sounds silly, like my first school, they prohibited any kids from charging their cell phones. Well, for a long time, during the first semester, that was a great strategy for teachers to be like, oh, you can charge your cell phone behind my desk. But, and then the kid didn't have their cell phone. So that was one where a lot of teachers didn't enforce it. But I find it's better to just be like on the same track as your principal or as your dean of students, because it'll help you, because at the end of the day, your dean or your principal is the one who's handling your worst behaved kids. You want to be on the same side as them. It's also really important to be consistent as like a team or as a school for behavior management, because then the kids know what to expect in every single room. If every single room has the same rules, your kids know what to expect, and the battle is going to be way less. It gets difficult when the kids come from a room where the teacher doesn't have any rules. They're allowed to chew gum, they're allowed to be on their cell phones, they're allowed to wear hats. Whatever the rule is at your school, if you have a teacher where the kids don't have to follow that rule, and then they come to your room next, it's going to be an uphill battle. But eventually you will win that battle, and I promise you it will come. But also do know your behavior management is going to definitely be a strong learning curve your first year, but stay consistent, stay true to yourself, keep talking to teachers in your team. Don't be afraid to reach out to others and ask for suggestions on what they're doing. Yeah. Well, I hope this video was helpful. If you guys have any questions at all, comment them down below, and I will be more than happy to answer with how I've handled that situation, or if I have any advice on it. I know this was kind of random and all over the place, but you know what? That's kind of how my mind is during the summer, and my notes were random and all over the place. But I don't know what my next YouTube video will be yet, but in this like new or like back to school series, I've done answering first year teacher questions, part 1, part 2. I took you guys on a tour of my classroom so you could see like how I set it up, how my paper flows, and I've done best and worst purchases. So something else will be coming at some point, but those are all the videos I'll have linked down below that I've been doing in like my back to school series. But until next time, you guys, bye y'all.